This week on the latest episode of The Big Show, the first film festival of the year kicks off this week. Charles Kirkland and I will discuss the 2022 Sundance Film Fest right behind me. Look, you see that? We'll discuss this and more on episode 487, Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode. I'm Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon. We are recording today's show on Martin Luther King Day. Happy Martin Luther King Day, or happy MLK. Charles Kirkland, how are you this morning, man?
I feel like I'm experiencing severe deja vu. I feel like I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know. But it's a beautiful day. I'm celebrating the Cowboys' loss.
You see, I'm able to put my hands up. That's what brought all of this about in the first place. But hey, man, it's good to be here. No football talk because Cowboy fans watch the Big Show too. So we are not here to ridicule them. Save that for the NFC East podcast that I want to plan on doing later on this spring. All right. So we got a lot of show coming up, man. The Sundance Film Fest. I've been going every year since about 2013. The last 2 years, we've been doing either all virtual like they're doing this year or a hybrid. But Charles, honestly, I miss being in Utah. Thin air. You got to have a lot of water in your system. Real bad things can happen if you don't. But it's the sense of community of seeing the same people. I think they normally have 9 to 10 different venues. And then there's Main Street, that's downtown Park City, that on the opening weekend, usually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. It's like Mardi Gras meets Times Square, all squeezed into Park City, with celebrities walking the streets, parties going on all over the place. Sundance is a lot of fun, and it normally kicks off the film year. I know you are going to be virtual. You've been virtual the last 2 years, haven't you? Or were you virtual last year as well?
The last 2 years, yes, I've been virtual. So, I mean, I've been trying to get to Sundance, but for some reason, one reason or another, it just hasn't happened. And another virtual year is all right by me.
Well, bro, we were all set to be in person this year. And then I was like, hey, man, Omicron broke up and came out. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to stay home in my little bubble and we're going to stay safe, man. So we got lots of stuff to do. And Charles, I know I didn't talk to you about this, but if you go to the FilmGordon.com, there's a Sundance Film Fest microsite that we built out that has all the films that we're going to discuss today. And there are a lot. So full disclosure, I called Charles up yesterday. I was very, very aggravated because I had been dragging my feet, picking my films that I wanted to watch virtually this year. And after experiencing some brief technical difficulties, my good friend told me, relax, man, we got this. But he did warn me of two things, Charles. You warned me that the website was going to be slow as molasses. And you also warned me that we didn't have a huge selection of films this year to pick from. And you were right on both accounts, brother. I left 2 slots open, Charles, because I booked, we had a total of 25 films that we could pick. I picked 23 because in case there's any wild card activity that happens this week, I got someplace to go. But the end result, Charles, from looking at my calendar, and just for people at home who don't really understand what we're talking about, if you go in person, you normally get 10 tickets to premieres. They give you as paper tickets that you request in advance. And when you show up, they hand you your, welcome to Sundance package. And then you go over into the same room and they give you the 10 tickets that you've allotted. And then you can start wheeling and dealing and doing what you do in order to get films that you may not have had an opportunity to find somebody who wants to trade, etc. Right? But they're doing it virtually this year, so it's the same 10 premiere films, but it comes with a catch. You only have a certain block of time, and it's a really tight block of time to watch those premieres, right? So you got to make sure you don't have films that conflict with each other, because just like in real life, if you were in Sundance, you couldn't watch 2 films at the same time and be in 2 places, right? But the wild card, which I thought was hilarious, was what is it called, Charles? The second day or next day?
The second screening.
Second screening, right. Second screening, they allow you 15 of these. And they give you 3 days to watch all your second screenings. So the end result is I woke up this morning, Charles, and looked at my film schedule for the week. And there were days that I had 9 films in a day, 10 films in a day, 8 films in a day. I was like, what in the So I think I'm under a lot of pressure, Charles, to do everything I need to do before Sundance starts. And I think literally before Friday, because Wednesday, I have 1 film. I know you have 1 as well. Thursday, I have 1. I don't know how many you have on Thursday.
2.
And then you got 2?
Yeah.
And then after that, man, all bets are off. I think I got like 6 on Saturday, 8 on Sunday. It's like, ah! So there's a lot of stuff going on this year, but we're going to try to navigate our way through it, Charles. So I'm looking, do you have the site up right now?
Yeah, I do.
So that you can look at the microsite and see what we have?
I did.
So where do you want to start?
Well, I've always said that I was going to be light on the documentary features. I think I'm only going to see maybe 1 or 2 documentaries. So we could start with the dramatic competition.
Oh, you want to start with the dramatic competition? I thought you were going to be a trailblazer, man, and start someplace, man, where people could follow you, man. But nah, you want to go to straight drama, man. Wow. All right. So let's go ahead, man. So we want to start. I think you and I, the first 4 films in here, I've signed up to see all 4 of these. And the first one, of course, is 892. And written by Abby Damaris Corbin. I'm sorry, it's directed by Abby Damaris Corbin, written by Kwame Arme. It tells the story of a person whose disability check fails to materialize from VA. They find themselves on the brink of homelessness, breaking his daughter's heart. With no other options, he walks into Wells Fargo's banks and says, I got a bomb. And now we got a movie. John Boyega, the late Michael Kenneth Williams, Michael Kenneth Williams' final performance. Nicole Bahari, Connie Britton, Olivia Washington, Denzel's daughter, all star in this film that's going to world premiere 892. What are you thinking about this film, man?
Well, I definitely have it as one of the films I'm going to see. The cast, it looks really great. And they said it's Michael Kenneth Williams. It could be Michael Kenneth Williams' last role, meaning that there may be some footage out there that they're going to throw in another movie. But this will be the opportunity to see, maybe the last opportunity to see him on screen. So I'm excited about this movie. It looks kind of interesting. And Abby Damaris Corbin is a co-writer of the film as well as the director for it. So and also to see Olivia Washington on screen, Denzel's daughter, that's going to be fun too.
Now we saw her. I want to say she was in The Little Things from earlier this year. She had the small scene.
She had a small part.
Yeah, it's playing in the police department when he came in there, I guess, to get something. So next up, man, here's a film that's giving me strong antebellum vibes. When a woman in servitude in 1800s Georgia escapes the 55-acre confines of her captor, she discovers the shocking reality that exists beyond the tree line. It's 1973. It's inspired by true events, which I'm like, okay, there's no time travel involved, but I'm assuming that they fictionalized the story. Keke Palmer, Common, Johnny Lee Miller, all star in Alice, which is a movie that both of us have on the list. I really want to see this film because there's not a lot of films with African Americans at Sundance this year, which is really odd to me. But they usually have a bunch, but not this year. It's a little sparse. But I wanted to check out Keke Palmer to see if this film will get any traction, what the reaction is going to be. And it's very different, Charles, when you're watching it virtually. Like when we're on boots on the ground, you have what I call the festival bubble. You know, people get all hyped up for these movies, and then 4 months later, you see it in the theater, and you go, yeah, it's all right. It was special in January. It's just all right now. But yeah, so any thoughts on Alice, man?
Well, like you said, Sundance is an entity into and of its own. We may see movies at Sundance we may never see again, and then we'll see movies at Sundance that are decent that we'll see later on in the year. So I think that Alice is one of those movies that we're actually seeing later on in the year, just because of the actors in the film. And again, like you said, it sounds like Antebellum all over again, but somehow this is based on a true story. So we'll have to see how deep it runs. And I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine thinking that you're a slave in 1973, but we'll see.
All right. So of course that film is also written and directed by Kristen Van Linden, excuse me. So we'll be checking that out and we'll get back to you and let you know. Now, our next film, man, is talks about after the death of her husband, a young woman travels to Japan where she finds solace in an old friend. But when comforting reading is fundamental. When comforting turns to affection, she realizes she must give herself permission before she can fall in love again. Charles, I know you passed on this film, but because I had some space, I've split this film in. This film is called Blood. It's written and directed by Bradley Ruskin Gray. It stars what I call Sundance Film Fest favorite Carla Jury, who I've seen in Wetlands and a couple of other films at Sundance. I added this one, Charles, out of just sheer curiosity because I know Carla Jury's work. It didn't sound like it was like this amazing story, but it gave me enough. And along with Carla Jury that I was interested, that I had some space. I said, I'll check it out, man. I'll check it out.
I know who Carla Jury is. Like you said, she's a Sundance darling. It seems like she's always doing something here, and not always does it show up again. And that's kind of how I felt about this one. It didn't strike me as something that I had to see, because there were other things that I would pick. So I jumped over this one.
All right, for you, if you're just tuning in, we're previewing some of the selections in the dramatic section, U.S. dramatic section, I think they call it, of Sundance Film Fest, which starts later this week. My next film looks at a directionless college graduate who embarks on a relationship with a young mom and her teenage daughter while learning the boundaries of a new bar mitzvah party starting gig. Dakota Johnson, Cooper Raiff, Vanessa Berghart, and more. Brad Garrett, and Leslie Mann, star in Cha-Cha Real Smooth, which is produced by Dakota Johnson, written and directed by Cooper Raiff, who both of them are starring and appearing in the film. I put this on my list, Charles. I know you have it on yours. What is your reasoning for selecting this film as one of the films you would screen this week?
Remember you earlier said that there's not a lot of Black films this year. So this was one of those ones that it has a nice pedigree to it. So I was like, I got to find something. And I like the Cha-Cha. I like the Cha-Cha.
Got you. All right. And for the same reason, I just saw Dakota Johnson. I have a hard, fast rule about Sundance, and we shared this yesterday, right? There are three things I look for at the Sundance Film Festival because nobody knows any of these movies, right? You either got to give me a star I'm familiar with, you got to give me a director or producer I'm familiar with, or you got to give me a story that sounds provocative. If it doesn't have any of those elements, we're not going to take our time and watch it unless somebody I respect comes to me and goes, Tim, I think you need to check this movie out. And then I'll go, okay, well, cool. But that film, Cha-Cha Real Smooth, kind of fit that description, one of those big three. Now, next up is another film that both Charles and I selected. Ready for a night of partying, a group of Black and Latino college students must weigh the pros and cons of calling the police when faced with an unusual emergency. R.J. Seiler, who played in The Harder They Fall, headlines Emergency, that is directed by Carrie Williams, written by K.D. Davala. Charles, we've been saying it the whole show. This one has Black and Latino characters in it. I think that sold you along with R.J. Seiler. Am I correct or am I reaching?
Well, Carrie Williams is also the director for this one. So I've seen that her work. R.J. Seiler, like you say, I want to see what he's going to do following up The Harder They Fall. So, yeah, this when I saw this one, it was like, yeah, I'm all in for this one. All in for this one.
Got it. And I feel sort of the same way, man. I mean, you take a chance, man. Sometimes we may be pleasantly surprised. We'll come back in a week. Because I don't think we're gonna have time to do a show this week. I'm just I'm saying later this week, Charles. You think it's gonna be tight?
No. Well, I don't know. Friday might be a light day. We might have. I think I have 3 movies that I'm gonna see. Maybe.
Well, we'll play it by ear, man. But I'm thinking that it's gonna be tough to get in the show. But we definitely want to come back and hit some of these films. Now, next up. As 3 women strive to find a place at an elite New England university, and as the insidious specter of racism haunts the campus in increasingly supernatural fashion, you can stop right there. You got me. That description, you got me. Each fights to survive in this space of privilege. Regina Hall, Zoe Renee, and others star in Mariama Diallo's follow-up to God, what was the name of the film that she did last year that I loved, that we saw in Middleburg? But this is a follow-up film. This one is called Master. The film she follows, God, what is the name of it? It's one word. Story about the group of Africans who can't find work in their own village. They travel abroad for work, all mysteriously die, and then come back as spirits. So when I saw her name, this description, in Regina Hall, I was like, check. That's on the list. What about you, Charles?
Yeah, all of the above. There's two films that Regina Hall has coming out at Sundance this year. This one and another one I'm hoping that we're going to talk about, but because I'm really, really excited to see the other film. But because it's Regina Hall, I love Regina Hall, so I got to see it.
Now, ironically, you just heard me describe Mariama. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Mariama Diallo. The next film we're going to talk about is the star of her last film is starring in this film. The story focuses on Aisha, an undocumented nanny working for a privileged couple in New York. And as she prepares for the arrival of the son she left behind in Senegal, a violent supernatural, anytime you put supernatural in the description, I'm in there. A violent supernatural presence invades her reality, threatening the American dream as she painstakingly pieces together. Anna Diop, who starred in Mariama Diallo's film, is in this one as the star, along with Michelle Monaghan, Cinque Walls, who played Don Cornelius, and American Soul? Yeah. And Leslie Uggams all star in Nanny. Charles, you understand why I'm excited for this. What stood out about Nanny to you?
Anna Diop, I love. She is in Titans. She played. She's also in Us. I mean, I'm a big fan of hers. I like almost everything that she's done, and so it was just when I see her, I want to see what she's doing. So, and of course, it sounds very interesting. Very interesting.
All right, Charles. So we've covered some of the dramas that stand out to us. I've got the board again. You're in control of the board. It's like a game show. What's our next category?
Let's go. Let's go to World Dramatic Competition.
World dramas. Oh yeah, there's a couple in here. Let's see. Okay, I feel like the guy. There's a couple in here. Ding, 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 ding. Let me go down and look at what I picked. Is there anything you picked? Because I picked the very last one in here. Did you pick any of these, Charles?
Actually, I picked a lot in this category because
I like to see down. So what did you pick?
Happening in other. So my first one I picked was a story about Cecilia and her children. They travel to her aging father's dairy farm after he has a heart attack. Back in her childhood home, Cecilia is met by her mother, a woman dead for many years, whose presence brings to life a painful past caused by the natural world around them. And I'm talking about the film from Chile, The Cow Who Sang a Song into the Future.
Okay. I mean, it's funny because, again, it has a lot of the stuff that I like. Wow. Oh, okay. I like the part that she meets a mama. That's kind of interesting. All right. I told you I got 2 left for a wild card. Okay, Charles. So what stood out about this one for you?
She meets her mother who's been dead for many years. Okay. I'm like, yeah, I got to see what that's about.
That was your selling point right there.
and then the title is The Cow Who Sang a Song into the Future. I mean, this is a little zany, a little crazy. I've got to investigate this one. And so I'm not opposed to reading some subtitles.
All right. So while you get ready for your next film, I'm going to go to the one I picked. The story: in an isolated mountain village in 19th century Macedonia, a young pharaoh witch accidentally kills a peasant. She assumes the peasant's shape to see what life is like in her skin, igniting a deep-seated curiosity to experience life inside the body of others. The girl with the dragon tattoo trilogy, Numi Rapace, stars in this film. Again, you had me at hello. Anytime you've got a really good concept, I want to check it out. You Won't Be Alone is the name of the film. Charles, you didn't put this down. This is not one that you picked.
Look, there's some things that I know that are just instinctively Tim Gordon, and I said I'll let Tim watch that one. I'll pick something else.
Hey, put me in the game, coach. Sign me up for that one. I was like, man. And again, Numi Rapace, good concept. I think I'm sold. So I will check it out. I like a lot of what Numi does. So I will check that out. So what else did you pick in this category, Charles?
I also picked a story about a lower middle class Black family in Brazil, a family of 4 that tries to keep their spirits up and their dreams going in the months that follow the election of a right-wing president, a man who represents everything that they are not. Sounds familiar. Sounds very familiar. The name of this movie is called Marte or Mars One in English.
Watch this, Charles. I already lived that story. I don't want to see it in a movie. I'm like, man, that's why people were talking about, don't look up, it's great. I'm like, nah, I've been there, got the t-shirt. But so what was it appealed to you about that? Was it the not satirical nature of it, but the familiarity? What was it that drew you into that story?
The familiarity and how it would play out in another country. So I mean, we're talking about Brazil, and I think it would look a little different, but maybe not. So that's why I really wanted to check it out to see, is this satirical? Is this representative of commentary, social commentary on what we've gone through here? And so other nations have already experienced some things like this. I mean, we got England with Boris Johnson, and Canada has their issues. So let's take a dip in the international waters.
All righty. So was there anything else in this category you wanted to tackle before we move on?
We can move on. I did pick another movie in the category, and that was Leonora Will Never Die. And this is a story about where fiction and reality blur when Leonora, a retired filmmaker, falls into a coma after a television lands on her head, compelling her to become the action hero of her unfinished screenplay. So,
why, Charles? Why, man?
Come on, you can't tell me that sounds fun. That sounds incredibly fun.
A television falls on her head and she becomes a superhero.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I'm going to leave that one there. I'm going to take control of the board, and I'm going to pick the next category, and I'm going to take premieres for 200, Bob. This one is such a good category because I picked a bunch of films in here I'll start off with one that Charles, I didn't tell Charles because we disconnected, but I had some spaces to fill. And I'll start off with the story of Lucy and Jane, who have been best friends for most of their lives, and they think they know everything there is to know about each other. But when Jane announces she's moving to London, Lucy reveals a long-held secret. As Jane tries to help Lucy, their friendship is thrown into chaos. Our old friend Dakota Johnson is back. With Jermaine Fowler from Coming to America, Kersey Clemens, who's a Sundance darling as well, Sean Hayes in the story. Am I okay? So I added that one because I saw that it's co-directed by Stephanie, is that Allen and Tig Notaro, the comedian Tig Notaro. Will Ferrell is a producer on this along with Dakota Johnson. It looks like a standard quirky Sundance sort of film, man. I don't think you picked this one, but I think it's worth a look.
I did not pick this one, and I don't have any reason why I really did pick it because I love Tig Notaro. Her comedy is great. Mm-hmm. Dakota Johnson is one of those actresses that I can take or leave, and Sean Hayes always brings the funny. But I said, I'm thinking that this story is going to be about a love affair between the two girls, and one is in love with the other one or something like that. And I'm like, we'll see. We'll see. I passed on it because, again, I know you wouldn't get it. I'll pick something else.
All right, man. Well, I got one for you, man. Next up in this category, down on her luck and saddled with debt, Emily gets involved in a credit card scam that pulls her into the criminal underworld of LA. Again, here we go. Ultimately leading to deadly consequences. Sundance darling Aubrey Plaza, Theo Rossi, Megalyn, I can't even pronounce the last name, Echika Woke, and Gina Gershon all star in Emily the Criminal. Again, good concept. Not necessarily good directors, produced by Aubrey Plaza, and with a cast of people that I know. Charles, this sounds like it ought to be interesting. I don't know how good any of these movies are. I just will settle for interesting to start and be surprised. Keep my expectations low and look for the surprise at Sundance. Emily the Criminal definitely plays like a movie that we will see much later in the year.
I'm very upset that you picked this movie because I picked it. I'm trying not to be in the same lane with you as much, and but I guess you don't know that I'm a big Aubrey Plaza fan as well. So just to see her in a lead role, because she's usually playing backup sidekick to somebody in a movie. So I'm excited to see what she'll do as a lead character in a movie. So I got it on my list.
So we have so after we skip the next film, there are 3 in a row that I think we both picked. Since I read 2 descriptions, you can read the next 2 because I'm setting you up. You don't see it yet, but you go ahead on and do the next 2, man. And I know you picked.
I don't know which one you're talking about, but I hope you save the one that I really want to talk about for me and not for you.
All right, I will read the next one and I'll let you do the next 2. So when a grieving college professor confronts 2 hunters, she captures trespassing on her property. She's drawn into an escalating battle of wills with catastrophic consequences. Thandawee Newton, Jeremy Bobb, and a bunch of others star in God's Country, directed by Julia Higgins. You can stop at Thandawee Newton. I'm good right there. I just want anything that Lady Newton is in, I'm going to check it out. God's Country sounds interesting. She's a heck of an actress, and I look forward to what she can bring to this. And Charles, you can do the next 2, man, because I know these are in your wheelhouse.
Nancy Stokes, a retired school teacher, is yearning for some adventure and some sex. Good sex. And she has a plan. She hires a young sex worker named Leo Grande. Emma Thompson stars in Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, directed by Sophie Hyde, and the screen written by Katie Brand. Come on now. Emma Thompson looking for love? and some good sex, yeah, I'm down for that.
I thought you were gonna call him Leo Grande because it looks like Grande to me. That's why I'm thinking.
Is it
I
Grande?
mean, it could be Grande, but it's satirical. Grande just sounds funnier to me. So I look forward to seeing her do something that I have not seen her do before. This ought to be fun. So what's up next, Charles? Because we picked all these movies.
We do know that Leo Grande has got to be a porn name, right? It's got to be. That can't be his real name.
There you go.
All right. In the aftermath of a huge scandal, Trinity Childs, the first lady of a prominent Southern Baptist megachurch, attempts to help her pastor husband, Lee Curtis Childs, rebuild their congregation. We're looking at Regina Hall, Sterling K. Brown as your stars in the movie that I'm most excited to see at the festival, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. That's right, you heard me. It's called Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. Director and screenwriter is Adama Ebo. Produced by Daniel Kaluuya and Ebo together. So this is going to be the one that I'm looking forward to the most. It's right in my wheelhouse. We talk about Southern Baptist Church. We talk about Sterling K. Brown. We talk about Regina Hall. Come on, man. Why wouldn't you want to watch this film?
Charles Undersold. I would have been like, "Honk for Jesus and save your soul." It's a great title. I mean, watch this later on. Can I have 2 for Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul? Just crazy title, man. Crazy title. But yes, Regina Hall has a couple of films at the festival. I'm glad to see Sterling K. Brown getting his Sundance on and doing his thing. Now, there are 2 other films that are in here. I'm not going to really touch on this because I picked one of these 2. The other one, I'm hoping that we can get a screener from Netflix so I could save watching it at Sundance. And of course, that's the genius, a Kanye trilogy. Kanye in 3 acts, that ought to be interesting, man. So I know a lot of people are going to probably flood and want that one. I want to see it where I'm not under pressure to watch it in a window of time because depending on how long it is, if they're doing 3 acts of it, you might have to sit through 2 hours to do part 1. I'd much rather see the whole thing at once and just call it a day, man. Now,
I know one person that's not going to see it.
Oh, that would
Kim
be
Kardashian.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I thought we were done in this category. No, there's a couple other ones in here we need to talk about. Let me jump on this one because I'm gonna let you have the last one. Sarah Jo is a naive 26-year-old living on the fringes of Hollywood with her mother, longing for money, and sister longing for exposure. She just longs to be seen. And when she begins an affair with an older employer, she is thrust into an education on sexuality, loss, and power. Sharp Stick also co-stars John Barenthal, Scott Speedman, Lena Dunham, Taylor Page, and Christine Frost. It's written and directed by Lena Dunham. And, you know, I think I'm not the biggest Lena Dunham fan, but I know enough about her work that I would check this out, that if Sundance selected this movie, it's something that I want to watch. I could possibly be wrong, but what do you think, man? Did you have Sharp Stick on your list?
Sharp Stick just fell short of my list of things to see. And as much as I wanted to see Black Reel Award nominee Taylor Page again, I said, I might pass on this one and check it out because, again, this sounds like a film that's going to be playing later on in the year. I'll get another chance to see it.
All right, and we're now looking at films in the premiere section of Sundance. And Charles, do you have another one in here? Because I think I got 2 more that are films that we should talk about.
Well, we need to talk about Cosby.
Wow, why do we need to talk about Cosby?
That's the title of the new.
I thought you just said it out loud. We need to talk about Cosby. Like, what did he do?
That's the title of the new documentary that W. Kamau Bell has done. It's going to be on Showtime in a couple months, but they're premiering it at Sundance, and it's a 4-hour special about how people can separate the art from the artist and whether we should even try. There are many people who would ask these questions, but none poses a tougher challenge about separating the art from the artist than about Bill Cosby. And so we're 4 hours. Let me repeat that. W. Kamau Bell is spending trying to address Bill Cosby, and you know how I love Bill Cosby, so I said, let me see it. I could have waited to watch it on Showtime or get my screener from Showtime, but I spent my ticket. I'm seeing it at Sundance.
So again, we just talked earlier about the Kanye West piece, which is probably going to be 3 hours plus. You're talking about 4 hours worth of Cosby. These are things that I'd much rather save my time and watch stuff that I know I can get in, because I've been at Sundance and I've watched, because normally they won't show you the whole thing, right? So let's say, for instance, there's 4 hours of Cosby, you might see half, right? I remember when they did the Wu-Tang Clan, Mics and Men, I think it was 3 episodes, they showed the first 2 at Sundance. So you don't get to see it all, you just get enough so that you can kind of preview it. And that's what it sounds like we need to talk about Cosby is gonna do. The other person, you talk about Black Real Award nominees, Margaret's life is in order. She's capable, disciplined, and successful. Soon her teenage daughter, who Margaret raised by herself, will go off to a fine university, just as Margaret had intended. Everything is under control. Here we go again, Charles. That is until David returns, carrying with him the horrors of Margaret's past. Black Real Award nominee Rebecca Hall, Tim Roth, Grace Kaufman, and others star in Resurrection, which, I think Rebecca Hall might have shot this movie earlier when she was shooting Passing, because it's clear there's been a transformation. And anything Rebecca Hall, I've been watching her work for about the last 15, 20 years. She is a fine actress, as we've been teasing now that we understand that she is mixed heritage. You know, she has now been invited into the cookout. And who knew? We've been watching Rebecca Hall all this time, like, oh yeah. But that's definitely what I had on my list. Charles, I think you had it on your list as well.
Yes.
And the only other film in this category I had was When You Finish Saving the World, which I won't go into, which is written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg and stars Julianne Moore. So I'm not really I don't want to talk about that one, as well as The Princess, a premiere about the life of Princess Diana told through archival footage. So there's a lot of premieres, but we need to talk about the Cosby. Is probably going to headline all of those, man.
Yeah.
So what's the next category, Charles?
You mentioned The Princess, but we had The Princess, which is about Diana, where we had Spencer earlier at the end of last year. We also have a Lucy and Desi movie that's coming out at Sundance after we just had Being the Ricardo. So there's some rehash going on. So
yeah, well, not necessarily rehash. It's people who have the same concept. Sometimes the timing works out that both of them hit around the same time. That's happened a lot. When we had Braveheart and Rob Roy, there have been several times when we've seen stories overlap. Like we did the Aretha last year. We had the television, the 8-hour version, Genius Aretha. And then you had Respect that came like 3 or 4 months later. That happens a lot more than we care to acknowledge, that these stories sort of overlap. But good point, Charles, and bringing that to the forefront to let people know that we have a couple of those instances happening at Sundance this year as well. All right, Charles, you got the lever now. What's the next category up that we want to talk about?
I'm going to talk about a category in which you probably have little to no input, and that would be the midnight category.
I knew where you were going. I had my finger on the trigger. Well, that's not necessarily true. I have one in here. I can buy one vowel in here.
Really? For those of you who don't know, the midnight is usually the edgier. Maybe you have your horror films and stuff that come in the midnight category, and we all know Tim is not a horror guy, so he doesn't really check in for a lot of these films. But I think horror is not a big theme as it has been for the midnight category this year.
Not necessarily true, because at the top of it, we have some of the films that have played in this section in the past. I've seen Hereditary. I saw Assassination Nation, and I saw The Babadook. Now, I will watch some of these movies when I'm in person. And this year, to Charles's point, I picked one, which talks about after a sexist joke goes viral, Cedric loses his job and embarks on a therapeutic journey to free himself from sexism and misogyny. His girlfriend, Nadine, is exasperated by his narcissistic introspection until they hire a mysterious and liberated babysitter to help shake things up. Babysitter sounds interesting. I don't know how horrified I will be by it. I will share with you what the experience feels like after I have had it. So that's the only film I picked in here. Then I'm gonna let Charles do what Charles does, because he picked one. I'm like, man, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that movie. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, the first one that I picked is, I think Tim just overlooked, because this one is about the horrors of modern dating as seen through one woman's defiant battle to survive her new boyfriend's unusual appetites. Starring Daisy Edgar Jones and the Winter Soldier Sebastian Stan. We're looking at a movie called Fresh. It was directed by Mimi Cave, and the screenwriter on it is Lauren Kahn. So I don't think this one may be a little edgy, but I don't think it's going to be the horror film that Tim runs away from us. And the cast is pretty good. Daisy Edgar Jones and Sebastian Stan. I was surprised that you didn't pick this one.
Well, actually, I did, man. I was looking at my phone going, oh, yeah, that's one of the bevy of like 8 films. So anything else you picked in this category, Charles?
Yes. Sarah deals with constant teasing from girls in her small town, but it comes to an end when a stranger kidnaps her tormentors. Sarah knows more than she's saying and must decide between speaking up and saving the girls or saying nothing and to protect the strange man who spared her. The name of the movie is called Piggy, and the picture that they attached to it is just this woman covered in blood from head to toe and just standing with a gaze like, eh.
like a new Carrie, but just even scarier. It's her feature makes it sound even scarier than what it is. I was like, I ain't watching that, man. I have to listen to Charles tell me at some point, man, you missed Piggy, man. Like, yeah, I guess I did, man. I'm not looking at that.
It's not Miss Piggy. I know, I'm just kidding. Just joking.
It's not Miss Piggy. It's you missed Piggy. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what categories are left that we need to talk about, because the lion's share of our films were dramas, world dramas, premieres. You just hit midnight. I think I picked some stuff in next. The next category of let me see if I did or not. Oh my God. This is
no.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's that I need to update next, because next still has information from last year in it. I don't have this year's next. Did you click on it and see what I'm talking about?
No, I did, but I don't see what you're talking about, because everything looks like it's from this year.
You got 20. Okay, so maybe I did something wrong, because apparently I'm not looking at it right. But I moved over to Spotlight. And in Spotlight, the first story I gravitated toward, and this is interesting because in this category, The Rider played in Next, and I've seen that. I saw The Lobster several years ago. So Next always has these really kind of quirky films in it. The first film I want to discuss is called After Yang, and it looks at in the near future, a father and daughter try to save the life of Yang, their beloved robotic family member. Colin Farrell, Jodie Turner-Smith from Queen and Slim, star in this. This one jumped out to me, man. I thought that it was quirky, and I thought that it had a couple of cast members that I really wanted to see. Worked for me, Charles. Was this one that you picked, or am I just solo on After Yang?
I think you picked it on your own, because I picked Duel, which is kind of like almost the same story. It actually is more the story of Swan Song with that edge in it. If you haven't seen Mahershala Ali in Swan Song, His performance is excellent. But the story of Duel is also quite similar, except there's a twist in which the person has to fight the clone that they made to take their place.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an added twist to it. Now I'm gonna glaze over Neptune Frost, which is a great title. I was all on board with looking at Neptune Frost until I looked at the trailer and went, I'm not watching that. That, come on, man. That was almost like a film. That to me, this kind of Afrofuturism plays better to me if I was in class watching it as an assignment versus me being in a theater watching it to review it. So that's just me. And I know people at home are gonna kill me like, Tim, you tripping. No, I'm not tripping, man. We have a window where there are days and we had 8 and 9 movies to watch, Charles. Am I overstepping my bounds here, man? Or we on point with how this, because it's not just about watching films, it's the how you have to watch them. That's important. And it's
how you navigate the time to watch them, and it's a different thing being at a film festival where you're isolated and your dedication is to that. But when you're home and you got everything else that happens in the home, you really got to be disciplined about structuring your time to watch a bunch of movies.
Absolutely, man. So Neptune Frost may end up being something really, really wonderful. Not at Sundance this year will that be a wonderful story. So I'm leaving that one alone.
I'm hoping that we'll see it later on down the line. It may come up somewhere else.
Now, the other interesting thing is this year they've introduced something called From the Collection, right? And the film that they're featuring is that it's a kind of a film from like back in the day. So this is a film from almost 30 years ago that played at Sundance called Just Another Girl on the IRT. And I remember when this film came out in 1993, 94. Kind of cool story. A lot of people haven't talked about it. It's not looked at as a classic, but it tells the story of a Brooklyn young woman, smart, witty, and confident, is not just another teenager on the NYC subway. Determined to make it out of her neighborhood and become a doctor, she confronts adversity while navigating challenging waters to achieve her dreams and goals. Chiquita Jackson, and I don't think there was anybody else that came out of this, but it was a winner for Special Jury Prize for Outstanding Achievements in First Feature back in 1993. Just Another Girl in the IRT, written and directed by Leslie Harris. Charles, have you had a chance to see this film?
I have seen it, yeah, and it was one of those films that was that tried to be like a Spike Lee film, but it was actually decent and not being done by Spike Lee. So it was actually a good film, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I can see why they would want to bring it back because it was a compelling story that originated out of Sundance in the past. So they bring it back to celebrate its success. So I'm not going to spend one of my precious 15 tickets to see it because I could probably find it somewhere else. So, I passed on it.
Absolutely, man. I look like absolutely, man. No, I was just bringing it up because I thought it was interesting they would have this. So now, Charles, I think we need to hit the U.S. documentary competition. And there's a couple of films in here that I thought were really, really interesting. The first one, which I'm not going to hit on, and I thought about picking it and I changed my mind. And we talked about this, Charles, was the Janes. And I kind of looked at it and was like, we have a limited amount of tickets. And I wanted to make sure that, I spend them watching some movies that I really need to see now. My philosophy is, and you've said it already in the show, that there's certain films that we're going to see that you may miss at Sundance, or you see on the schedule that you may miss at Sundance. Now, you'll see those films later on in the year. Trust me, you will. But this is for the movies we need to see now. And if you can get in and check them out early, at least get some feedback. So the first one I want to talk about is a film that, as a history guy, intrigued me. It says Clotilda, the last slave ship carrying enslaved Africans to the United States, arrived in Alabama 40 years after African slave trading became a capital offense. It was promptly burned and its existence denied. After a century shrouded in secrecy and speculation, Descendants of the Clotilda survivors are reclaiming their story. The film is called Descendant. It is produced by Questlove, Black Reel Award nominee last year for his documentary, Summer of Soul. Charles, this one grabbed me. I really am very excited to look at this historical story and learn more about this slave ship, the Clotilda. I don't know if you had this on your list or not.
Like I said in the beginning, I tried to stay away from the docs and tried to do more dramatic features. And for that reason, I skipped over this category altogether. And
Wow.
I'm kicking myself because this story seems like something that I really need to see. So hopefully somewhere down the line, it pops up again, because this sounds like a compelling story, an important story to be seen.
All right. And then for some reason, man, I think it must have been me because it was late last night. I thought some of these categories I had tied into this year because I clicked on World Docs and it's taking me back to the documentaries from last year. So we've done them. I just haven't properly linked them, and that's on me, man. So for the most part, Charles, I think we got about less than 10 minutes to go, man. That is my preview of the Sundance Film Fest. There are so many different stories and so many different people watch the movies they watch. Like, we could have our 25 and it may be several people who have 25 films and none of them are the films that we selected. They have 25 entirely different films. But you and I think, are probably lockstep on probably maybe between 60 to 75% of our picks are similar. I don't know what that says about you and I, but
Well, again, we said we usually focus on stories that we can relate to, and that's the African American experience. And so there aren't that many of those films this year. So that's why I think a lot of our we had some divergence on some movies, because I mean, outside of the similarity that we share, we had to find other things. And so that's where our variety came in, was in those other things.
Now, I looked on the actual page because it's on the page, even if it's not in the Sundance microsite. Under next, I know I picked Riotville, USA. I don't know if I picked anything else in that category. Yeah, that's the only thing that I picked there. Riotville, USA sounded interesting to me. I was thinking, let's give it a shot. Trying to think, and we talked Spotlight already. Yeah, that was your favorite Neptune Frost was in there, Charles. New Frontier. I don't know if there was anything in there. I know they had a kids section. I know I absolutely didn't pick any movies out of kids. And I didn't pick any out of New Frontier, which is the VR section of the festival, Charles. Indie Episodics. Indie Episodics. I don't think I picked anything out of Indie Episodic as well. So yeah, I think for the most part, you and I both kind of stayed to the current format. And as I'm laughing, telling you earlier about generally there are these thousands of movies that come in, it doesn't feel like there were a lot of movies to select this year, Charles. Am I off base or am I wrong?
Well, I think you're right. And then I think we had 3 movies that addressed abortion rights from different angles, three different movies. And so I'm like, I'm not saying if you've seen one, you've seen them all, but I mean, how many times can you tell the story of abortion rights in how many different ways? So, I mean, there's not that much this year. I think it may be pandemic related and people didn't get to make as many movies, but there's not a lot of stuff at Sundance this year as in comparison to years past.
So I'm trying to think, man. Now, before we get out of here, because we got about 5 minutes, did we actually miss something, bro? Like, because it feels like this list is short. Like, and when I say our list is short, I'm saying, did Sundance release some more movies that we didn't hear about? Like, this cannot be all the movies, man.
This is it. This is all they have. We didn't talk about shorts. I mean, there's a whole bunch of shorts that they got 4 shorts programs and we don't have to waste a ticket on those. We can watch those anytime.
Well,
But
somebody sent me some shorts last night from Sundance, and they sent one called Hallelujah. I need to send you that one because that one was funny about these two guys in South Central LA raising this kid named Hallelujah. and the commentary in the background about, man, how you gonna mess up my dating game? How I'm gonna tell somebody I'm raising Hallelujah? So I thought that was funny. So we probably will reach out to them, and those are films that we need to be looking at for another film festival that's on my chest right now.
The other side.
On the other side?
Yeah, there you go. You're sticking out the wrong side.
That is, I'm hoping the kids at home aren't watching this because they're like, that is not a cool pose. That is the dad pose for real. Like, so Charles, we got a couple of minutes to go, several actually. So any thoughts about what may be a breakout this year at Sundance, man?
Honk for Jesus, save your soul. Honk for Jesus.
So did you say that was is that already got a deal, or because that sort of feels like something that's going to either end up Netflix, like one of the, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. It feels like that sort of film to me. Amazon,
I haven't heard anything, but you could be right. Yeah, I mean, it's just got the pedigree, the people who are in it, the title. It seems like it's going to be doing something somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that one sounds interesting. The other one that we talked about with Numi Rapace feels like something that A24 or Neon or one of those smaller little boutique houses would buy a film like that. I think about stuff like The Witch a couple of years ago that A24 scooped up. Or the other one, one of my other favorite Sundance films about the girl who slept with a guy and she got a demon on her, and the only way she can get rid of the demon, she had to sleep with somebody else, and it was like,
oh yeah,
what was that movie called? But I'm just saying, these are these crazy Sundance stories that I have from watching these movies. And then I know I talked to you recently about my favorite Sundance film of all time, R100, which I advise people you should check it out. Charles, this movie is so bizarre. It starts off with a guy it starts off with a woman in a woman's restroom, and she's putting makeup on her face. And you don't understand what's going on. And she walks out of the bathroom and she comes to the table. There's a guy sitting there waiting for her, and she just hauls off and kicks him in the side of the head. And as his head smashes up against the window, instead of having a look of like, what happened to me, he has a look like of climax where he's like so pleased and happy. And that is the beginning of one of the most bizarre, most memorable films I saw at Sundance, called R100, that deals with a guy who his wife is in a coma, and he signs up for a bondage and BDSM, kind of membership to this club. The dominatrix will come. You don't go to them. They come to wherever you are. So home, at work, on the streets. It is easily one of the most creatively bizarre movies that features a story in a story. I told Charles in 3 acts, the first 25, 30 minutes, man, there was a mass walkout in the theater. I never forget it, man. Everybody just got up, man, like, man, I'm out of here. This movie is ridiculous. And then 20 minutes later, man, everybody who stayed were on the floor laughing because you see the story inside of a story. And then you sit there for the 3rd act, and it becomes this really weird sort of story where you have an actress who's super tall with the small Asians, and R100, I would suggest watching it. I'm not saying it's Citizen Kane. It is not The Godfather, but it will be the kind of movie that you will talk about and share with your friends. And trust me, Charles, when I say share with your friends, it's not LaQuisha. That's a different kind of thing. LaQuisha is an inside joke I have because a couple of years ago, 3 years now, they were doing the worst movies of the year, and I always like the worst list because I like to read and figure out, like, are movies really that bad? And I found this movie on Amazon Prime. And for 2 hours, Charles, as it was on, my mouth was like this. This was my one expression for 2 hours. LaQuisha is as advertised. It is absolutely one of the worst films, maybe one of the worst films I've ever seen. And when I say worst films, it's like really tone deaf. It felt like a story, as I seg back to R100. It felt like a story that sounded better when you were in your head and when you started putting it together, instead of having friends that go, man, you can't do that. He didn't have any friends, so he just did it anyway. And then at the end, it was like, wow. So R100 is not necessarily that, but it's just this really memorable film. And the other film, Charles, that I will close with, that I think a lot of people talked about as one of the worst films of Sundance, that I didn't see it. Just look up The Greasy Strangler, and I'll just leave it at that. Just an old dude with stringy hair, walking around with Daisy Duke shorts on, junk hanging out. This is what I was told from people, and I was like, yeah, thanks for the heads up on that. I don't even understand why y'all thought that this was a movie you should invest time or a ticket in going to see. But Sundance has there's always these sorts of films built into the programming. It's like you gotta make sure when you roll you spinning the roulette wheel that you avoid those sorts of films. R100 is a film that I would suggest you watch. Not saying it's great, but I thought it was memorable. But Charles, you had your hand up. You got a minute to go.
You said people told you about it, or did you watch The Greasy Strangler?
Oh, no, I did not watch The Greasy Strangler. People who saw it came back to me, most notably Travis Hobson and some other folks telling me how bad it was. And I was like, yeah, but I've seen some bad films at film festivals, man. I've seen some bad films.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not going to throw this movie under the bus or this festival under the bus, but it wasn't at Sundance. But the worst movie I saw was at another local festival. I was like, my God, this movie is bad. And I've seen some of the films that people have submitted to our film festival. Everybody's not a director. So closing, Charles, as we're running out of time, the Sundance Film Festival 2022, let me move to the side, takes place from the 20th of January to the 30th of January. I'm not sure, depending on how much time we have on Friday, to see if we can turn out a show for this week. If not, we will come back with a gangbuster Sundance edition, because there'll be plenty to talk about. So on behalf of my co-host, Charles Kirkland, please see something good at the movies. We've given you a lot of recommendations. Check out some of the recommendations of the Sundance films and stay away from LaQuisha and some of these other bad films. We will see you guys on the other side, but you guys take care. And Charles and I will be very slit-eyed when we come back, because it's a lot of movies to watch. You guys take care, man, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a nice one.